Li Yu was reborn in Swallowing the Starry Sky and originally intended to rise to the power of Luo Feng. After selling her Earth residency rights, she wandered through the interstellar space, but unexpectedly activated the system, the Infinite Life Simulator, keywords of the novel. Swallowing the Starry Sky, I can simulate life without pop-ups. Swallowing the Starry Sky, I can download the complete set of Simulation Life TXT. Swallowing the Starry Sky, I can simulate the latest chapters of life to read. Chapter 1. Opening the Sims. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Opening the Sims. Li Yu, take a bag of Bailey in a lighter, windproof. Li Yu smiled and handed over the cigarette and lighter, saying, "Sorry uncle, the old price is 17. The middle-aged man outside the counter, known as Uncle Gue, took it and skillfully opened the packaging. He took out two, one thrown at Li Yu and the other in his mouth, and lit it. Take a deep breath and slowly spit out after passing through the lungs. Hurry up and don't suffocate me." As he rose, he took out a $20 bill from his pocket and handed it to Li Yu. "I'll give you 3 yuan. Li Yu took the cigarette thrown over, held it in her mouth, and then took out 3 coins from the money box at the counter. She watched as Uncle Gue casually put them into his pocket and joked. "You should also smoke less. Smoking is harmful to your health. Not smoking doesn't necessarily mean one can be very healthy. Moreover, in this world, early death leads to early rebirth." Uncle Gue waved his hand, sneered, and turned around to leave. "Yes, it's all about hard work and hard work." Looking at Uncle Gue's back, Li Yu lit a cigarette, took a deep breath, and slowly exhaled. Then he burst into a bitter smile. "But at the very least, it's still stable now. I don't know how long this stable day can last. I don't know if I can survive until the Lord of Luo City rises to power. Hey, let's just get by." Leaning casually on the armchair behind the counter, Li Yu sighed slowly in her heart. He is actually a traveler. And this world is exactly the web article, Swallowing the Starry Sky, that I have read in my past life. The strong dominate the world, the weak can only obey and be slaughtered by others. Hey! Various thoughts flashed through her mind, and Li Yu took a deep breath. Tobacco entered her lungs through her throat and slowly vomited out, with a slight bitter smile on her face. When he first arrived here, he thought he was the protagonist, but reality gave him a big mouth and he worked hard for 3 years, only to make his body stronger. As for the path of warriors. Don't say you stepped on it, you can't even see it. Over time, Li Yu chose to lie flat. Managing the convenience store left by my parents with peace of mind, pulling on my 2 younger sisters to survive in this world. Occasionally, I also fantasized about living until the peak of Luo Feng, when the right to live on Earth would rise, and I would sell my house and buy a more remote life planet to roam the world. But this is obviously not very realistic after all. Li Yu is just an ordinary person who has not yet entered the realm of cultivation. He has survived for over 100 years and cannot wait for Luo Feng to rise to power. But I have some hope in my heart, but it's always good. Detect if the host's attitude is negative, lies flat and accepts fate, activates the system, and initiates the simulation life. In my mind, a mechanical sound quietly rang out. System. Li Yu was taken aback, with a hint of strangeness on her face. He has traveled to devouring the Starry Sky world for over 3 years, and has already resigned to lying flat. As a result, the system came out. What's going on? Open. Li Yu took a deep breath, got up and closed the door, then eagerly chose to open it. The system has been activated. Do you want to activate the Sims? Using it once currently costs 1,000 yuan, the current balance of money is 0, do you want to recharge it? The mechanical sound echoed in my mind again. Money. Li Yu didn't know why, so she tried to take out a red banknote from the counter and said, "Recharge." Recharged successfully, current balance is 100, winky face. With the sound of machinery, the red banknote in Li Yu's hand disappeared instantly. 1. That is to say, starting a Sims requires a cost of 1,000 Huaxia coins. Li Yu opened the money box at the counter and counted the banknotes. There were less than 5,000 yuan in cash, which was already all his assets. Taking out 900 from it, Li Yu's gaze gradually became firm. Recharged successfully, current balance is 1,000, winky face, whether to start the Sims or not, yes. Li Yu eagerly responded in her mind. Then, before my eyes, words quietly appeared one after another. At the age of 21, you have not yet entered the martial arts world, so you have decided to work hard and practice martial arts diligently. At the age of 22, after a year of hard work, you have made no progress, except for a slight increase in physical fitness, with no gains. At the age of 20.3, after a year of hard work, you have made no progress, except for a slight increase in physical fitness. With no gains. At the age of 20.4, you were trying hard to cultivate when suddenly a nobleman came over and took notice of your twin sisters. He wanted to take them as forbidden territory, but you resisted desperately and were killed by their punch. There was not much text, only a few lines. After reading it, Li Yu slowly closed her eyes. My heart was completely silent. Is it so difficult to even survive like this in this world? For a long time, noble person. A cold laugh quietly rang out, and Li Yu's emaciated figure slowly stood up. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 24, secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face, third, half-day memory before death, 2. Li Yu didn't hesitate and directly chose the second one. He urgently needs strength now. As for the martial arts realm of one simulate for 3 years without any progress, what should he do? In the next moment, countless martial arts knowledge flooded into Li Yu's mind. These are exactly the results of his 3 years of hard work in simulating life. Now, among the junior students in the martial arts school, I think I'm pretty good, right? Li Yu looked at her hands and couldn't help but feel a hint of bitterness in her heart. Simulating for 3 years, coupled with 3 years of hard work just arriving in this world, takes a full 6 years to become an ordinary level of junior students. It has to be said that Li Yu's talent is also to a certain extent inferior. If there were no golden fingers, giving him another 20 years would not necessarily lead him into the realm of martial arts. 20 years is not enough, then 30 years. 30 years is not enough, then 100 years. Li Yu's eyes flickered with determination. Even if a simulation life can only live for 3 years, 100 years is only 30.4 simulations. 1,000 Chinese coins, 30.4 times is just 30.4 thousand Chinese coins. For warriors, what are these 30.4 Chinese coins worth? You should know that when Lord Luo became a warrior, the Extreme Martial Arts School gave him a villa, a martial arts secret script worth 50 million yuan, and a start-up fund of 20 million yuan. Even if I can't compare to Lord Luo, I can't possibly not have even 500000, right? Recharge. Recharged successfully, current balance is 4,200, winky face, whether to start the Sims or not, yes. As Li Yu's voice fell, words appeared one after another. At the age of 21, you have not yet entered the martial arts world, so you have decided to work hard and practice martial arts diligently. At the age of 22, after a year of hard work, you made a slight breakthrough in martial arts and became an intermediate student in the Extreme Martial Arts School. At the age of 20.4, you were trying hard to cultivate when suddenly a nobleman came over and took notice of your twin sisters. He wanted to take them as forbidden territory, but you resisted desperately and were killed by their punch. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 24, secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face, third, half-day memory before death, 1. As soon as Li Yu finished speaking, she felt a warm current rushing into her body, accompanied by waves of tingling, and her muscles were boiling all over. After a moment, the tingling sensation dissipated, and Li Yu opened her eyes and swung her fist with a sudden wave. Boom! The counter shattered in response. Fist strength of 400 kilograms, intermediate student. Newcomers seeking support for new books, end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Fist strength 900 kilograms, Quasi martial. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Fist strength 900 kilograms, Quasi martial. Current balance is 3,200, do you want to activate Sims? Yes. 2 simulations, 6 years of hard work, reaching intermediate level. This talent is considered extremely poor in reality, but Li Yu didn't care and started the next simulation directly. This is just like playing games. The reason why games can become popular is that in games, effort is always rewarded, while in reality, hard work does not necessarily lead to rewards. At the age of 21, you are already an intermediate student. After careful consideration, sell your property to assist in your cultivation at the age of 22, with the help of medication, your cultivation speed has significantly improved at the age of 23, after running out of medication. On the advice of the martial arts school assistant, you decided to join the HR Alliance's army and go to the wilderness base to garrison at the age of 24. In a small beast tide, you were torn apart by a beast soldier level monster. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards. 1. The martial arts realm at the age of 24. Secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face. Third, half-day memory before death. I didn't even see that noble person's face this time. 1. Start your Sims. The text reappears. At the age of 21, you are already an outstanding intermediate student, trained by a martial arts school, and your cultivation speed has improved. At the age of 22, you work hard to cultivate and become a seller of property, purchasing medication as an aid. At the age of 23, you worked hard to cultivate, but your medicine was depleted and your progress was slow. At the age of 20.4, you were working hard to cultivate when suddenly a nobleman came over and took notice of your twin sisters. He wanted to take them as forbidden territory, but you resisted desperately and were killed by their punch. In this simulation, Li Yu's strength has reached that of an intermediate student and has also been valued and cultivated by the martial arts school, but the final outcome has not changed. Killed by a punch from that nobleman. Li Yu's face looked a bit ugly. He knew that if he could ignore the martial arts school and act recklessly to this extent, the background behind him must be surprisingly large. At least there must be warriors above the rank of war generals behind the scenes. Thinking of this, Li Yu clenched her fists and a hint of ferocity appeared on her face. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 24. Secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face. Third, half-day memory before death. 1. Li Yu did not hesitate, but decisively chose 1. For him now, the most important thing is undoubtedly the realm of martial arts. Everything else is empty. The first priority is to pile oneself up as a warrior. As long as you become a warrior, no matter which faction you join, you can obtain a startup fund. With money, one can continue their life simulation and become stronger. Whether it's for those 2 sisters or for himself, he needs to become stronger. At least in 3 years, I won't be killed by that noble person recklessly. Start your Sims. Text emergence. At the age of 21, you are already one of the outstanding intermediate students, just 1 step away from the advanced students. You have been trained by a martial arts school, but due to concerns, you left Nian district with your sister to live. At the age of 22, due to your status as an intermediate student, you joined the HR Alliance and served as a teaching assistant in its martial arts school. With the assistance of medication, your fist strength reached 600 kilograms, becoming a senior student in the martial arts school. At the age of 23, you work hard to cultivate and your martial arts progress gradually improves. At the age of 20.4, you were working hard to cultivate when suddenly a nobleman came over and took notice of your twin sisters. He wanted to take them as a forbidden domain, but you resisted desperately. Between life and death, your fist power broke through 900 kilograms and you became a quasi-warrior, but you were still killed by one of his punches. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 24, secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face, third, half-day memory before death. The current balance is 200, winky face. Does this guy have a lingering soul? Li Yu's face looked a bit ugly. He had already left Nian district with his sister this time, but still couldn't avoid being targeted by this noble person. It's impossible for him to leave Jiangnan base city, right? It should be noted that in the worldview of devouring the starry sky and earth, the cost of traveling between various base cities is outrageous and the degree of danger is extremely high. I am already a quasi-warrior now. Breaking through the warrior and moving a Shui and Yu into the warrior community should make me feel better. Li Yu took a deep breath and made a decision in her heart. 1. Accompanied by a familiar tingling sensation and muscle boiling, Li Yu successfully crossed the stage of advanced students and became a quasi-warrior. Fist power, 900 kilograms. Go to the martial arts school, verify the identity of a senior student, and confirm that you currently have the ability to fight as a quasi-warrior. See if you can get the startup funds, and if not, mortgage your house to the bank. Standing up, picking up the clothes on the table, Li Yu walked towards the door. He needs money now. Brother, where are you going? Just as Li Yu stepped out of the store, 2 beautiful shadows appeared, looking at Li Yu and asking questions. It is Li Yu's twin sister, Li Shui and Li Yu. My strength has improved a bit, go to the martial arts school. Li Yu grinned, he still loved these 2 girls very much. Otherwise, we wouldn't have fought to the death every wave. Martial arts school. Be careful, brother. Come back early. Don't worry. Li Yu responded as she walked, her back gradually fading away. Hey, I haven't given up yet. Is it something we can expect from martial artists? Li Shui looked at her brother's back, let out a low sigh, and then pulled her sister into the convenience store. Li Shui knows very well what his brother is like. If he really has talent, he wouldn't be a beginner at 21. Nian District, Extreme Martial Arts School, Drip. Because Li Yu is a junior student at the Extreme Martial Arts School, he can directly swipe his card to enter. Li Yu. Why did you come? Haven't you given up yet? Are you going to be 21 years old this year? You're still a junior student. Give up early and don't resist unnecessarily. In the Martial Arts Academy, on the road, on the lawn, and in the pavilion, a large number of students gathered. When they saw Li Yu enter, laughter came from behind. Obviously, Li Yu's popularity here is not low. However, it is rare to see a beginner at the age of 21. Li Yu was also aware of this and ignored it, walking straight to the teaching building of the senior students. Entering here, the number of people has noticeably decreased, with only a dozen or so people in the 100-meter-long and wide martial arts training hall. This is the senior students' teaching building, where junior students should go. As soon as Li Yu entered, she received the gaze of more than 10 senior students in the martial arts training hall. One of them, a bald man over 1.9 meters tall with a fierce scar on his face, approached and spoke up. I have reached the level of a senior student, that's why I came in. Li Yu's face was calm and she responded softly. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Mortgage Property, HR Alliance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Mortgage Property, HR Alliance, are you sure? The bald man looked at Li Yu with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Wearing a junior student's ID, claiming to have the strength of a senior student, okay, there's nothing wrong anyway. You can give it a try, and if it meets the standards, you can easily authenticate the identity of a senior student. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a problem to always wear junior students' identification documents. The bald man only looked around for a moment, then smiled and asked, test your fist power or speed. First, test my fist strength, and I'll also see what level I've reached. Okay. The bald man nodded slightly and then walked towards the boxing test machine in the martial arts training hall. At this time, a strong man was waving his fists in front of the test machine. As his left and right fists fiercely hit the boxing target, a series of numbers flashed on the upper screen. 876 kilograms, 894 kilograms, 815 kilograms, 907 kilograms. Stop for a moment. Yang Wu. What's going on? The strong man looked up at the bald man, waving his fists without stopping. He continued to strike more than 10 fists before finally stopping. After wiping his sweat, he asked in a muffled voice. That little brother said he meets the standards of a senior student and wants to give it a try. Yang Wu pointed to Li Yu and responded. That's a good relationship, come on, come on. Seeing that he was a newcomer and the strong man didn't stop much, he turned around and gave his seat to Li Yu. Li Yu didn't hesitate, taking over the seat and accumulating strength was like punching with all her might. Drop, drop, drop. The punching test machine makes 3 consecutive sounds. Standing next to him, Yang Wu and the strong man raised their eyebrows fiercely. They all know that punching machines usually don't make this kind of sound, and there is only one possibility of making this sound. Fist power surpasses 1,000 kilograms. Sure enough, my gaze was on the display screen of the boxing test machine. 1,124 kilograms. Hide it deep and not reveal it. Yang Wu looked at Li Yu, wearing the identification of a junior student, and said that he had reached the level of a senior student, but his fist power directly reached the standard of a Quasi warrior. Is this Nima a bit seriously ill? In fact, Li Yu did not expect that her fist could break through 1,000 kilograms. She was extremely excited at the moment, waving her fists and making a continuous roar. In just a few seconds, Li Yu's fist had left more than 10 marks on the target. On the screen of the punch target testing machine, a series of numbers also popped up. 1,004 kilograms, 981 kilograms, 1,073 kilograms, 947 kilograms. The average punching strength is over 1,000 kilograms. On the 4th floor of the senior student teaching building, a middle-aged man with black hair stood in the skylight, overlooking the students practicing below. Drop, drop, drop. A faint voice came from downstairs. The middle-aged man with black hair looked slightly sideways. It should be the fist strength testing machine downstairs, which was the first one to wait. When it reached 1,000 kilograms, it would make this sound. Is it that kid Yang Wu? That kid is the one who likes to come to the martial arts school for cultivation and can weigh over 1,000 kilograms in one punch. However, he should have made some progress, otherwise he wouldn't be able to achieve a punching power of 1,000 kilograms per punch. As the middle-aged man with black hair spoke, he walked downstairs. For a warrior like warrior, the distance between 2 stairs could be reached in the blink of an eye. Instructor. Instructor Jiang. Who is this kid? The middle-aged man with black hair frowned slightly as he looked at Li Yu waving his fist and smashing it at the punching machine. It's not Yang Wu, and there's also a junior student's ID hanging. I don't know. Yang Wu shook his head and then explained the whole story to Jiang Nian. Don't smash it, test the speed. What's the use of just looking at brute force? After listening, Jiang Nian's face showed some contemplation, and then his figure froze. When he reappeared, he had already tightly grasped the fist that Li Yu had smashed. Officer Jiang. Anyway, after staying in this martial arts school for 3 years, I still have an impression of the master Li Yu, so I quickly bowed and shouted. Don't make such a fuss, measure the speed. Jiang Nian waved his hand and pulled Li Yu onto the speed test track, then stood on the side with great interest. Can this be considered as putting ducks on the shelves? Li Yu smiled bitterly, but didn't pay much attention. After adjusting her breathing, she suddenly exerted force. The 60-meter runway, under Li Yu's full acceleration, almost reached its maximum speed in an instant, and the whole person advanced at lightning speed like an iron arrow leaving the string, until passing the speed test area. 26.7 meters per second. Jiang Nian looked at Li Yu's identification and then at the numbers on the screen, silently touching his chin. Continuously punching at a steady speed of 1,000 kilograms, with a speed of 26.7 meters per second. Based on this, even if the nerve reaction speed is poor, it can still steadily pass the test line of a quasi-warrior. Where did this person come from? Li Yu, 21 years old, has never practiced genetic energy in the records. A teaching assistant glanced at Li Yu's junior student ID and quickly got a rough idea of Li Yu's information. A 21-year-old quasi-warrior, not bad. Jiang Nian nodded slightly. The 21-year-old quasi-warrior, although not a genius, still belongs to the elite. Li Yu, your strength has reached the standard of a quasi-warrior. How about becoming a warrior and interested in joining the extreme martial arts school? I plan to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment on April 1st. Li Yu nodded slightly and immediately responded to Jiang Nian. Compared to the military and HR alliance, Li Yu prefers the two major martial arts schools, as their management is relatively relaxed and more free. Of course, the HR alliance and the military are also capable. But you need to pay more. Give me enough money, you can let me be a mercenary licking blood with a knife. 5 minutes later, Li Yu stood at the entrance of the martial arts school, holding the senior student ID of the extreme martial arts school in her pocket. The start-up funds have not been received at all, and the earliest we can do is wait until April 1st, the day after tomorrow, when the prospective warrior meets the assessment standards and signs the warrior contract before we can receive them. So now Li Yu can either wait patiently for the assessment of the prospective warrior, or can only mortgage the property left by her parents to obtain funds and make herself stronger. Seemingly a multiple-choice question, but in reality, it is a multiple-choice question. Hello, I want to mortgage my property. Where can I apply for it? Walk straight towards the HR alliance. After all, compared to banks, HR alliances do more diverse things, which may not be suitable for ordinary people, but are more convenient and effective for warriors. Even though Li Yu is not a warrior now, it seems that a quasi-warrior who has not yet signed a warrior contract is even more popular. Sorry sir, only martial artists are welcome here. Please go to the bank for property mortgage. The service girl responded gently and politely. I am a senior student at the extreme martial arts school and have reached the standard of a quasi-warrior. The quasi-warrior assessment will be held on the first day of next month. Can you please accommodate me? I'll consult with the leader. Could you please, thank you. After finishing speaking, Li Yu waited quietly. After a moment, a middle-aged supervisor hurried over to confirm Li Yu's ID as a senior student of the extreme martial arts school, and then took him into a martial arts training hall. The equipment such as the fist force testing machine inside is similar to that inside the extreme martial arts school. After a brief test, it was determined that Li Yu exceeded the standards of a quasi-warrior in all aspects. The supervisor promptly processed a property mortgage for Li Yu and warmly invited her to join the HR alliance after passing the quasi-warrior assessment. After all, martial artists will not have too many factions. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The protagonist relies on talent, and I rely on risking my life. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The protagonist relies on talent, and I rely on risking my life. Leaving the HR Alliance branch in Nian district, Li Yu smiled as she looked at the bank card balance text message on her phone. 1 million. If he goes to the bank, without the status of a quasi-warrior, he can mortgage up to 500,000 yuan at most, even if the property itself is worth around 1 million yuan. This is the privilege of a warrior. Take out 1 million cash and put it in a box, weighing 23 pounds. The system is quite lackluster at this point, requiring cash to recharge. Go home first. Carrying her suitcase, Li Yu walked towards the convenience store and waved to her neighbors as usual. The HR Alliance branch in Nian district is not far from the convenience store, more than 10 miles away. Even if Li Yu did not deliberately rush, it only took 20 minutes. The power of a warrior is terrifying. Brother. Just as the suitcase was placed under my feet and was about to open the door, the store door slowly opened and two beautiful shadows caught my eye. It's my two younger sisters. What's wrong? I didn't go to class today. Li Yu raised her eyebrows and asked curiously. Brother, we have taken leave and have something to talk to you about. Looking at the suitcase in Li Yu's hand, Li Shui and Li Yu seemed to have thought of something, their faces turning a bit ugly. What's going on? Li Yu hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, if you have anything, just say it directly. Are you still worried that brother won't listen to you? I don't have the courage, you two are my ancestors. Don't be poor. You're talking about the right thing. Seeing Li Yu's posture, Li Shui and Li Yu's faces became even worse, and they all rebuked in unison. Then perhaps I felt my attitude was a bit serious, and then I spoke softly. However, Li Shui casually took the suitcase from Li Yu's hand. So heavy. After a little weighing, it weighs a full 20.30 pounds. Brother, both of us know that you want to become a warrior and give us a better life, but talent and that kind of thing all depend on fate. Our family of 3 has a bad fate and none of us have the talent to become martial artists. This is also something we can't do. You can run the shop left by your parents safely and marry us a sister-in-law in 2 years, can't you? Li Shui was carrying a suitcase, tears streaming down her face. Don't cry, speak up if you have something to say. Li Yu looked at the two girls with teary eyes and sighed softly. She took out a red notebook from her arms and placed it on the table. There are 4 big characters printed on it. Extreme Martial Arts School. Didn't everyone say that brother has made some progress? What is the most basic trust between people? Even if there is progress, what happens? Intermediate students in martial arts schools. Brother, can you stop being so naive? You're 21 years old, what if you're an intermediate student? Don't you know that from 16 to 30 years old, it's the fastest stage of cultivation, and the older you get, the slower your progress becomes. You're only 9 years away from 30 years old now, and it's only 20.1 years since you reached junior level. How far can you go in these 9 years? Intermediate learners. Li Shui did not look at the red notebook that Li Yu had left on the table, but instead her tearful emotions became even more excited. Your brother has already become a senior student and has reached the standard of a Quasi warrior. The Quasi warrior assessment will be conducted the day after tomorrow. Looking at the two girls, Li Yu let out a low sigh, picked up the red notebook, opened it, and pressed it against Li Shui's tearful melon seed face. The content in the red notebook is very concise. Under a photo of Li Yu, there are 4 big characters of senior students prominently printed, and further down, there is a red steel seal with 4 big characters of Extreme Martial Arts School. Approved by Jiang Nian. What? Li Shui and Li Yu suddenly froze. That means your brother is a warrior. Li Yu looked at her 2 stunned sisters and grinned, feeling quite satisfied. I feel like my strength has improved a lot today, so I wanted to go to the martial arts school to test it. However, I didn't expect this test. The martial arts school's supervisor, Jiang, said that I can participate in the Quasi martial arts assessment now and pass it steadily. After passing the Quasi warrior assessment, you can apply for the warrior practical assessment. Your brother has great confidence in his practical ability and will become a formal warrior in about 1 or 2 months. Really? Li Shui trembled her lips and asked slowly. Li Yu beside her was not much better either, crying like a little flower cat. But this time, it was tears of joy. After all, that's a warrior. Representing the most transcendent group among humans, representing privilege, money, status. Can this still be fake? After today's test, Manager Jiang also invited me to join the Extreme Martial Arts School after completing the Quasi Martial Arts Assessment, and allocate a villa in Mingyue community, as well as 1 million yuan in start-up funds. Liu explained with a smile that he didn't actually know that a start-up capital of 1 million was the lowest level. And Liu, even though he is now a 21-year-old quasi-warrior, he may not be considered a genius, but he is also one of the best among his peers, and can even receive over 5 million yuan in startup funds. But this was enough to make Li Shui and Liu burst into tears of joy. 2 hours later, Liu, who had finally comforted the two girls, walked into her room and shook her head somewhat surreptitiously. Coaxing girls, he really works hard. Recharge. Recharged successfully, current balance is 100,000, winky face. Whether to start a life simulation? Yes. At the age of 21, you become a quasi-warrior. After passing the warrior's actual combat assessment, you are recruited by 2 major martial arts schools, the military, and the HR Alliance. At the suggestion of your sister, you join the military and become a member of the Special Forces, with the rank of second lieutenant. With the resources of the military, you have obtained guidance techniques and learned them, activating your genetic abilities. Overnight, your fist power has increased by 200 kilograms, becoming a true warrior at the age of 22. You worked hard to cultivate through guidance techniques, but unfortunately, your aptitude was too poor and your gains were meager at the age of 23. You worked hard to cultivate through guidance techniques, but due to your poor qualifications, you gained very little. Due to slow progress over a long period of time, you were abandoned by the upper echelons and demoted to a wilderness base as a platoon leader, with your rank promoted to lieutenant at the age of 24. In a small beast tide, you were torn apart by a beast soldier level monster. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 24, secondly, the realization of martial arts at the age of 24, winky face, third, half-day memory before death. After reading the text, Liu remained silent and indifferent, learning guidance techniques and activating genetic energy only increased my punching power by 200 kilograms if I remember correctly. Jiang Nian said when introducing the technique of guidance that most people learn it for the first time, and their punching power increases by about 300 kilograms. Those who increase by about 600 kilograms are considered excellent, while those who increase by 1,000 kilograms are considered elite. The protagonist Luo Feng learned guidance for the first time, and his fist power increased by 2,000, making him a genius. That one who has increased by 200 kilograms, what is it? 1. Feeling the tingling sensation emanating from the muscles inside her body, Liu sighed slightly. The protagonist relies on talent, he relies on risking his life. 1 time is not enough, then 100 times. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Price increase, specialized and precision knife technique, seeking recommended tickets for follow-up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Price increase, specialized and precision knife technique, seeking recommended tickets for follow-up reading. Start your sims. Liu grinned and shouted in her heart. Insufficient balance, unable to open sims, insufficient balance. Liu was taken aback. He just recharged 1,000,000 yuan per simulation, so theoretically he can simulate it 1,000 times. This is just 1 time, why is the balance insufficient? Recharged successfully, current balance is 99W9200. Whether to use a life simulator, current usage requires a cost of 100,000 yuan, winky face. Liu stared at the response given by the simulator in her mind and was suddenly taken aback. It is obvious that the reason for the price increase is because he has officially entered the martial arts industry. But is his meowing a bit outrageous? From 1,000 to 1 million, it has increased by 1,000 times. Moreover, I have just entered the martial arts stage and am at the lowest level of a warrior. 1 simulation earns 1 million Chinese coins. What about going further up? How many times is it enough for him to simulate the currency circulating on the entire Earth at the level of God of War, 1,000 times at a time? Let's take one step at a time. The current amount of money is 99W9200, which is only 800 Chinese dollars away from 100W. After leaving the room and rummaging through boxes and cabinets, I found 800 Huaxia coins. Recharged successfully, current balance is 100,000, winky face, whether to start the Sims or not, yes. Watching the text appear in front of her, and then seeing the balance reset to 0, Liu sighed. We need to make money. He originally thought that the money he had mortgaged his property would be enough to support the expenses of his Sims for the next 2 days. He just needed to focus on Sims and wait for the Quasi Warrior assessment. After the assessment of the Quasi Warrior, with the start.up funds, they can become a God of War level existence in a short period of time, and then go to Babatana to collect the inheritance of Hianbo. Take off all the way. But now it can only be said that man's calculations are not as good as heaven's calculations. The money spent on mortgage property has been exhausted, and this simulation is over. He will not be able to start the next simulation in a short period of time. Only when the probationary assessment is completed, sign the contract to join the faction, and receive the signing fee. But normal warriors only receive 1 million yuan in startup funds. It's just an opportunity to simulate life. But for Liu, is one simulation enough just for his talent? Obviously not enough. After all, before solving that elusive benefactor, Liu only had 3 years in his simulation life. Go to the wilderness. Liu's heart slowly became firm. The assessment for quasi-warriors has been postponed. He wants to enhance his strength as much as possible before signing the warrior contract, making his talent look more dazzling. Only in this way can he obtain sufficient start.up funds. With money, he can continue to start his Sims and enhance his abilities. And it's not just about the system that requires money, it's also necessary in reality. Whether it is martial arts secrets or weapons and equipment, as long as it is related to the warrior, there is no cheap one. The best way for him to obtain a huge amount of wealth now is through the start.up funds obtained after signing the warrior contract. Having made up her mind, Liu placed her gaze on the gradually appearing text in front of her. At the age of 21, you become a quasi-warrior. After passing the warrior's actual combat assessment, you are recruited by 2 major martial arts schools, the military, and the HR Alliance. However, you refuse all of them and choose to go to the wilderness area to become a mercenary in the mercenary army. Although you may not receive the highest quality training, the daily life and death battles allow you to make rapid progress in your understanding of martial arts. At the age of 22, after a year of life and death struggle, you have reached the advanced warrior level in martial arts, and your understanding of martial arts far exceeds before. At the age of 23, the base you are stationed at welcomes a wave of beasts. You resist with all your might, and in a desperate battle, your swordsmanship reaches the level of specialization in the beast tide. You are torn into pieces by a beast-level monster. Indeed, the battle between life and death is the easiest to progress. Liu grinned and said with a smile. Although I didn't even live to be 20.4 years old this time, the gains it brought were definitely far greater than any before. Not only did he reach the level of advanced warrior in martial arts, but his swordsmanship also reached the level of specialization. Unfortunately, we can only choose between 2 options. At the end of the simulation, you can choose to receive one of the following 3 rewards: the martial arts realm at the age of 23, secondly, a 23-year-old insight into martial arts, third, half-day memory before death. Liu shook her head and stood up. 2. Very decisive, without any hesitation. I haven't considered entering the wilderness area before, and my primary goal is to become a warrior. Naturally, my first consideration is the realm of martial arts. Now that we have decided to go to the wilderness area, we naturally need to make up for the shortcomings in this area. Otherwise, there would be a realm of martial arts in the air. In the wilderness, not to mention living to be 20.4 years old, one might end up sleeping in just 2 days. Moreover, specialized swordsmanship is inherently more precious than the advanced warrior-level martial arts realm. After all, the level of specialization should be a realm that only generals and warriors can reach. At the moment when Li Yu made a choice, countless knowledge and experience about knife techniques, as well as various combat techniques, quietly appeared in her mind. In that moment, even without a knife in his hand, he felt like he had become a swordsman who had practiced martial arts for many years. At this moment, Li Yu can be called a true warrior. Early morning, brother, what are you squatting there for? Li Shui and Li Yu were dressed neatly, and when they opened the door, they saw Li Yu crouching at the convenience store, puffing up clouds and asking curiously. You two take a leave this morning, and I'll take you both to the martial arts school. Li Yu saw the two sisters, smiled and said. Why go to the martial arts school? No need, we still have to attend classes. Don't leave any ink stains, keep up. Li Yu shrugged and then turned around to walk out of the convenience store. Since we have decided not to conduct the prospective martial arts assessment for the time being, we must give the two sisters a reassurance. Witnessing it firsthand is the best way to say it. Besides, he already has to come to the martial arts school today. The demand is also very simple, borrow a knife. There's no way, he's now in dire straits and forced to borrow from the martial arts school. Seeing that Li Yu had already started, Li Shui and Li Yu looked at each other helplessly, and then could only run to keep up. On the way, I casually called the teacher to ask for leave. Drip. After a journey of more than 10 miles, the three of them walked for over half an hour and arrived at the main entrance of the Extreme Martial Arts School. Li Yu swiped her student ID and then brought her two daughters into the courtyard. Hello, senior brother. Senior brother. Although it was early in the morning, there were still many scattered students on the lawn in the courtyard. These students may not know Li Yu, but they knew the senior student ID hanging on her chest. Suddenly, there was a surge of respect. After all, the entire martial arts school has tens of thousands of students, but only a few hundred senior students. Li Yu ignored and walked straight towards the teaching building of the senior students. Li Shui and Li Yu closely followed behind. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Jiang Nian's Persuasion. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Jiang Nian's Persuasion. In the martial arts training hall of the senior student teaching building, there are still more than a dozen senior members who are training on their own. They only raised their heads when they saw someone walking in. Oh. Li Yu, are you here for training? At this moment, Yang Wu was punching the strong man who had given Li Yu a seat yesterday. When he saw Li Yu walk in, he wiped the sweat off his face and asked loudly. I felt a bit improved after returning yesterday, so I came to test it. Also, I have something to talk to Instructor Jiang about. After responding to Yang Wu, Li Yu explained to the two girls behind her and walked towards the 4th floor of the advanced teaching building. He needs to first inform Jiang Nian of the news that he is temporarily not participating in the martial arts assessment, and then see if he can borrow a weapon from the Extreme Martial Arts School. Entering the 4th floor of the senior student building, it is easy to find Jiang Nian. At this time, he was standing in the French window, looking down at the students on the lawn below. It's Li Yu, what's going on? As soon as Li Yu entered the 4th floor, Jiang Nian sensed it and turned to look at her, with a slight smile on her face. He checked Li Yu's information in detail through the channels of the Extreme Martial Arts School yesterday after Li Yu left. He is 21 years old and does not have a strong family background, so he can meet the standards of a Quasi warrior. Although not comparable to those geniuses, in the future, one can still become a warrior-level warrior, which is already a pretty good talent. After all, Jiang Nian is just a warrior-level warrior. So if Li Yu is brought into the Extreme Martial Arts School, he can receive rewards from the school. As for Li Yu, if she doesn't choose Extreme Martial Arts School, Jiang Nian doesn't feel like it. After all, Compared to other forces, the identity of a martial artist in a martial arts school is more free. If you want to become a martial artist in a martial arts school, Liu, as a student of the Extreme Martial Arts School, naturally considers the Extreme Martial Arts School first, instead of the nearby Thunderbolt Martial Arts School. After all, as one of the two major martial arts schools in the world, Thunderbolt can provide the same treatment as his Extreme Martial Arts School. Even if Liu refuses to join the Extreme Martial Arts School, there will be no loss for Jiang Nian. On the contrary, he can still gain a talented martial artists network. Instructor Jiang, I would like to delay the assessment of Quasi warriors. Liu didn't hesitate and went straight to the point. When will it be delayed? Jiang Nian was taken aback for a moment. Tomorrow is the assessment for Quasi warriors. Why did he choose to withdraw and delay the assessment at this time? I want to postpone the Quasi warrior assessment until June. That's okay, even if you start the Quasi warrior assessment tomorrow, you still have to wait until August 1st to conduct the Unified Warrior practical assessment. The Quasi warrior assessment on June 1st does not affect it. Jiang Nian touched his chin and asked after his statement. But what do you want to do with the delay of this month? Wilderness Zone. Liu responded. There is no need to hide from Jiang Nian that he is going to the wilderness area. After all, we still have to borrow a knife from Jiang Nian. Wilderness areas. Jiang Nian frowned and his face was slightly stunned. Why are you going to the wilderness area? You can't possibly not know the situation in the wilderness area. I know. Liu grinned, her fair teeth seeming to be shimmering with white light, appearing somewhat eerie. Do you know you're still going? You haven't practiced genetic abilities yet, not even a warrior, just a Quasi warrior. In the wilderness, any warrior-level monster can take your life. Jiang Nian remained silent for a moment, dissuading Dao. I can do it. After returning home yesterday, I felt some improvement, and now I almost have the strength of a formal warrior. The standard for a Quasi warrior is a fist strength of 900 kilograms. After practicing genetic energy, the average person will increase by about 300 kilograms, which means the standard for a beginner warrior level is 1,200 kilograms. Liu already has around 1,000 kilograms of fist power, and with the addition of 200 kilograms after practicing genetic energy in the Sims, it happens to be 1,200 kilograms. Just reached the standard of a primary warrior level warrior. Although you don't know what gives you confidence, you should know that paper data doesn't represent everything. Even if you have the fist power, speed, and reaction of a formal warrior, you are at a disadvantage in combat experience. Without any combat experience, go to the wilderness area and face a near death. At the end, Jiang Nian almost paused every word and said earnestly. If you want to go to the wilderness area, you can wait until the actual combat assessment of the warriors is over and join the Extreme Martial Arts School. At that time, you can follow a warrior-level warrior team into the wilderness area. There's no need to rush for a moment. Instructor Jiang, my mind has been determined. Liu's eyes were firm, and she did not change her mind at all due to Jiang Nian's persuasion. After all, if he wants to become stronger and obtain a considerable start-up fund before signing the warrior contract, he can only go to the wilderness area. After all, it's impossible to save enough money for Sims in the base city. Even if he were to be frugal and save a whole million, giving him 3 to 50 years may not necessarily save so much money. Since you have made up your mind, then go down. I want to see what gave you confidence. Looking at Liu's resolute expression, Jiang Nian fell silent. Then he shook his head and walked downstairs. Good words are hard to persuade damn ghosts. Since it was his own choice, let him bear the consequences on his own. First, let's test the fist power. The standard for beginner-level warriors is to have an average fist power of 1,200 kilograms. Come and give it a try. Walking up to the boxing test machine, Jiang Nian looked at Liu and spoke up. Upon hearing this, Liu dared not hesitate and slightly exerted her strength. Then, with a full punch, she hit the punch target of the punch testing machine heavily. Drop, drop, drop. The punching test machine makes 3 consecutive sounds. The display screen above also shows a number. 1,415 kilograms. 200 kilograms more than the basic warrior level standard. This can also be considered good in the beginner warrior level. It's only been a night since we last saw each other, and our punching power has increased by 200 kilograms. Jiang Nian frowned slightly, unable to tear apart his sister. The idea of cultivating genetic energy flickered in my mind, but it was immediately rejected. After all, even the worst guidance technique cannot be purchased by Liu, whose parents have both died. Moreover, a 21-year-old Quasi martial artist can never increase his boxing power by 200 kilograms just by practicing the Fund original ability for the first time. If this 200 kilograms increase in fist power is the source of your confidence, then I tell you, it's not enough. In his heart, he was puzzled, but Jiang Nian was still making the final struggle and earnestly advised him. Monsters in the wilderness area are divided into Beast Soldier level, Beast General level, and Lord level, corresponding to Warrior, War General, and War God level, respectively. They are the weakest H-level elementary Beast Soldier level, and their current strength is also comparable to yours. Not to mention that your punching power is only 1340 now, it's doubling. Going to the wilderness alone would be a near death. Besides, you don't have any combat experience yet. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Compete in Martial Arts. Seeking recommended tickets for follow.up reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Compete in Martial Arts. Seeking recommended tickets for follow.up reading, I have some combat experience. Liu remained somewhat silent, as he did not have an accurate understanding of the wilderness area. As Jiang Nian said, his current strength is even the weakest H-level monster, which can be comparable to his strength. But does he have a choice? With his ghostly talent, if he stays safely in the base city, 3 years later, he will still be punched and killed by that so-called noble person. It's better to go to the wilderness. Seeking wealth insurance. Give it a try, bike to motorcycle. Do you have combat experience? Jiang Nian seemed to have heard some joke, giving a sneer with a hint of sarcasm on his face. What weapons are you good at? Knife. Align with me, I want to see your combat experience. Jiang Nian walked into the weapons room next to the martial arts training hall with a cold snort, took out 2 single-handed battle knives, one thrown at Liu and the other casually held in one hand, with the blade pointing towards Liu. At this moment, all the senior students in the martial arts training hall, including Liu's 2 twin sisters, gathered around. They may not know what happened between Liu and Jiang Nian, but it is human nature to watch the excitement. Moreover, on this lively side, Jiang Nian is still the ceiling of combat power in the Extreme Martial Arts School of Ian District. The Simulation Knife of the Blood Shadow 2 series. As soon as Liu took over the war knife thrown by Jiang Nian, a familiar feeling surged in his heart. At this moment, the knife was like an extended part of his body. Expert-level sword technique, terrifying like this. Come on. Jiang Nian held a sword with one hand and had a casual figure, but his sword fiercely swung towards Liu. Without any skills, it's just the simplest horizontal cut. Chong. The sound of metal collision suddenly rang out. Then everyone saw Liu take a few steps back to stabilize her body. Liu actually blocked it. It should be Instructor Jiang who released the water, right? Your words are like Zhuang Zhou's purification and farting. Jiang Jiaoguan is a primary warrior. Yang Wu, who was exclaiming, turned his head and glanced at the person speaking, feeling somewhat speechless. The person also groped his nose in frustration. No rebuttal was made. But even if Jiang Nian released water, Liu's sudden action was enough to shock everyone. Not bad, no wonder you have so much confidence. Jiang Nian's casual disappearance on his face was unknown to others just now. Can he still not know? Even if he didn't use all his strength, he himself was driven by the idea of letting Li Yu know the difficulties and retreat. Although there was no skill in that knife just now, the force was as high as 3,000 kilograms. Even in the intermediate warrior level, there are not many who can take on this strength. Not to mention Li Yu, a junior warrior level. But the fact is in front of us, Li Yu took it, and there's nothing wrong with it. There are only two possibilities. 1. Li Yu hides her strength and her combat power has reached the intermediate or even higher warrior level. 2. Li Yu's swordsmanship realm is very high. Jiang Nian has split 10 points, and he only needs 5 points or even lower to resolve it. Come again. The sword in his hand was swung out again, and a few strands of laughter quietly appeared on Jiang Nian's face. This time, there's a possibility of finding a treasure. Chang. 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 Two blood shadow swords fiercely clashed, and their figures were also unpredictable. Everyone present could see that Li Yu was at a disadvantage. But every time I can barely catch Jiang Nian's knife. This is already amazing. The difference between generals and warriors is not only in strength, but also in the realm of martial arts. Otherwise, even if one steps into the rank of a general, it will only be a mere illusion of realm. Jiang Nian obviously does not belong to the category of fake goods. As a famous warrior and medium-sized general in Nian district, he is very tough. Expert level. Jiang Nian, wielding his sword alone, looked at Li Yu, who was persevering in front of him, and gave a firm conclusion. Hiding strength is impossible. Leaving aside the fact that Li Yu had no need to do such a thing, he could see it clearly when he made his second cut. And as he became more serious in the future, Li Yu was still able to fight him back and forth, even if they were at a disadvantage. Each time they barely managed to maintain it, but they could also feel that they were in the same realm. Expert level. I really found a treasure this time. Jiang Nian's face showed a hint of excitement. At the age of 21, he is a quasi-warrior and has a specialized level in swordsmanship. When these three are combined, there is only one corresponding noun. Genius. A genuine genius. How many warriors at the level of generals immerse themselves in it, practice hard for a lifetime, and still remain at the level of specialization? And this Li Yu is only 20.1 years old. At this point, things like quasi-warriors are no longer important in Jiang Nian's eyes. The realm of martial arts can also rely on external forces, but understanding such things can only rely on oneself. This is talent. Chang. A loud bang rang out from the junction of weapons held by Li Yu and Jiang Nian, and then we saw Li Yu suddenly retreat more than 10 steps under Jiang Nian's strength. His arms trembled, clearly devoid of the power to fight again. What are you delaying the martial arts assessment and entering the wilderness area for? Jiang Nian withdrew his sword and excitedly asked. I want to try my best to become stronger before conducting the quasi-warrior assessment. Only in this way can I obtain more resources when signing the warrior contract. Li Yu looked at her trembling arms and let out a bitter smile, clearly indicating that Jiang Nian's last blow was an increase in strength. There is a saying that there are 4 or 2,000 pounds, but there is also a saying that one force can surpass 10,000 cleverness. Listening to Li Yu's reply, Jiang Nian was somewhat silent, but on second thought, it was not unreasonable. Have you ever thought about going to the wilderness to save your life? Martial arts must contend. Greed for life and fear of death, what kind of warrior should one be? Li Yu grinned, with a hint of madness in her eyes. He also wants to live a stable life, but in this world, being weak is the original sin. If he doesn't want to become fish and be slaughtered, then he can only become strong. What a martial arts master who strives for excellence, what a warrior who fears death. Jiang Nian was taken aback for a moment, then burst out laughing loudly. Don't delay the quasi-warrior assessment either. After participating in the Quasi warrior assessment tomorrow, I will help you contact a warrior team and you will follow them to the wilderness area. As for the martial arts contract, we'll wait until your martial arts practical assessment is over. However, you have to give me an accurate answer. Under equal treatment, priority will be given to my extreme martial arts school. That's necessary. Li Yu responded with a brilliant smile. It would be great to be able to follow the warrior team into the wilderness area. He's not a tiger, how could he not know that entering the wilderness alone would lead to a near death? But sometimes, there is no second choice. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Assessment for Candidates, 1/2, Seeking Follow-up Reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Assessment for Quasi Warriors, 12, Seeking Follow-up Reading. Expert Level Swordsmanship. This kind of genius, you should sign a warrior contract with him as soon as possible. Late at night, inside the skylight of the advanced student building of the Extreme Martial Arts School, two figures stood with their hands down, one of which was Jiang Nian during the day. Isn't it understandable that he wants to become stronger before signing the warrior contract in order to receive higher standards of treatment? Jiang Nian looked at the knight with a calm voice. How much can he improve in just 3 months from May to August? This is not something I can manage. Since he has requested it and it's not a big deal, what can I do if I trust him? What if a martial arts contract is signed now? The maximum penalty for breach of contract is only 300 million yuan. When the treatment is not as good as other forces, will it be poached? Jiang Nian calmly came for a third consecutive session, and after speaking, the person also remained somewhat silent. It really makes sense. Martial arts must contend. Seeing that the other party was no longer arguing with him, Jiang Nian chuckled and then looked into the distance, muttering to himself. I went to the Extreme Guild Hall in the city center, and I shouldn't be able to come back at noon. You two don't have to wait for me to eat on your own. In the morning, Li Yu finished drinking soybean milk in front of him, got up and said to the two girls. After passing the assessment, I will send you a message. Wait for my good news. Brother, come on. Li Shui and Li Yu nodded excitedly. Sister, why don't we take a day off today? If we can visit the store, we can keep holding our phones and get the news as soon as possible. Looking at Li Yu's departing figure, Li Yu suddenly suggested. Sure. Li Shui readily agreed. To be honest, since witnessing Li Yu's ability to become a warrior with her own eyes yesterday, she couldn't even sleep well last night when she was so excited. I naturally don't have much mood to go to class. After making the decision, Li Shui took out her phone and directly called the teacher to ask for leave. At first, their teachers were dissatisfied. After all, they asked for leave for 2 consecutive days, which was a great delay for the two sisters in Senior 3. But when Li Shui said it was because her brother was going to undergo a quasi-warrior assessment, she wanted to get the news as soon as possible. After a moment of silence, she still agreed. After all, warriors in this world, it is a transcendent existence. Take a pack of cigarettes, by Li Kun. A voice came, and the two sisters skillfully took out smoke from the table and handed it to them. Why are you two absent from class? The customer was obviously an acquaintance, took the cigarette, opened the packaging, pulled out one, and asked in surprise while lighting it. I'm on leave. Are you two in your senior year? How could you take a leave when it's so important, your brother? Where did that kid go? The customer frowned slightly. My brother has gone to participate in the quasi-warrior assessment. Li Yu's ostentatious response. Assessment for quasi-warriors. The customer was taken aback and looked envious. After all, those who can be assessed as quasi-warriors are not far away from them. Even if they fail the assessment, they will eventually become warriors in a few more years. Sir, this is Mingyue community, please don't get close. Otherwise, if we enter the yellow line area, we have the right to shoot and kill. On Li Yu's side, after leaving the convenience store, head straight to the subway. Under the guidance of the navigation, follow the number 11 subway line to Zhongmen Road Station, then turn to line 1 to reach the city center of Yangzhou City. Then I walked for about 10 minutes and successfully arrived at the destination. Mingyue Community, the headquarters of Extreme Martial Arts Academy, is located in Yangzhou City, within this community. I am Li Yu, a senior student from the Nian District branch of the Extreme Martial Arts School. This time, I am here to conduct a Quasi martial arts assessment. Looking at the 6 soldiers with live ammunition at the entrance of the community, Li Yu dared not act recklessly and explained. Oh. In the lounge next to the community, an elderly man with gray hair slowly walked out and touched a tablet in his hand. It's only after 7 o'clock, come so early. Take out your ID card and senior student ID card, they need to be checked. I took out my ID card and student ID card from my pocket and handed them over. The old man casually took it and swiped it towards the tablet in his hand, and some information appeared on the display screen of the tablet. Okay, let's go in. I hope you can pass smoothly. The old man glanced at the information, waved his hand, and the electric sliding door behind him slowly opened. A soldier holding an assault rifle followed Li Yu into it. Sir, I will take you into the Extreme Guild Hall. During this period, because you only have the permission to enter the Extreme Guild Hall and do not have the permission to enter the Warrior's family area, please do not run around. Otherwise, even if I do not take action, the patrolling brothers will still take action. The soldier looked at Li Yu and warned. Good. Li Yu nodded and looked at the assault rifle in the soldier's hand, expressing no objection. As the headquarters of extreme martial arts in Yangzhou City, Mingyue Community is naturally very large. According to Li Yu's walking speed, it took a full 10 minutes to reach the Extreme Club in the center of the community. After seeing Li Yu enter the guild hall, the soldiers left on their own, while Li Yu waited for the assessment of Quasi warriors under unified arrangements. After all, he did come a bit early. Li Yu, you came so early. The assessment time was 10 o'clock, and Li Yu sat on the sofa, closing her eyes and recuperating, waiting for time to pass. Suddenly, a loud voice came from behind. Li Yu turned her head and saw a bald and strong man. It was Yang Wu. Yang Wu, are you also here for the Quasi-Warrior assessment? Li Yu doesn't remember much about the early storyline of Devouring the Starry Sky, but she still remembers that Yang Wu passed the Quasi-Warrior assessment at the same time as Luo Feng. He has come several times. Accompanied by Yang Wu was a tall, fair-skinned woman in white clothes, dressed in strong attire. Upon hearing this, she couldn't help but smile and say, last month, never passed, I think this time it's also hanging. Li Yu looked around and saw no figure that matched Luo Feng's figure. She nodded slightly and was indeed hanging. Yi Xian, if you don't speak, no one will treat you as mute. Yang Wu glared at them and then introduced them to each other. Quiet. A cold drink rang out, and the 9 people who were still discussing turned their heads to look at a middle-aged man wearing loose and strong clothing. Go upstairs and start the quasi-martial arts assessment immediately. Don't make any fuss. Yes. Everyone nodded in response, then followed the middle-aged man into the elevator and headed to the 6th floor. It's a bit late today, sorry, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Assessment for candidates, 2 halves, seeking follow-up reading and recommendation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Assessment for candidates, 22, seeking follow-up reading and recommendation, drip. The elevator door opens, and what catches your eye is a huge martial arts training hall. Inside the hall, there are more than 10 figures, including the owner of the Nian district, Jiang Nian. There are still quite a few people, 9 people, more than I did back then. Among the dozen or so figures, a tall and beautiful woman with a huge scar on her face spoke first. You participated in the Quasi-Warrior assessment 10 years ago, can you compare it to now? A middle-aged man with long hair draped around him looked at Li Yu and others, and spoke. Everyone come over and prepare for testing. Yes, Instructor Wu. 9 people, including Li Yu, responded respectfully. When they came over, they had already been educated by various instructors. The middle-aged man in front of them was the chief instructor of the Yangzhou City branch of the Extreme Martial Arts School, Wu Tong. Give me your ID card first. The person who led Li Yu and the 9 others up took their ID cards from Li Yu and others, and then directly delivered them to Wu Tong. Wu Tong casually pulled out an ID card and slid it down from the nearby instrument. The personal information stored in the ID card instantly appeared on the pop-up screen of the instrument. It's Li Yu. The first one, Li Yu. Wu Tong looked at the identity information on the screen and raised an eyebrow. Lao Jiang, why did you quietly pop up in Nian district? 21 years old, not bad. Jiang Nian chuckled and said, isn't it because you have confidence that you dare to come over? Oh. You're so confident, don't be like that kid Yang Wu. Every time you come to see the excitement, haha. Next to Jiang Nian, a plump old man picked up Jiang Nian's words and smiled. Lao Jiang has great confidence in this Li Yu. Wu Tong's gaze fell on Li Yu and he laughed loudly. For the sake of this kid, Jiang Nian deliberately pulled me over. Can you have no confidence? The woman who spoke at the beginning said lightly. That's right, kid. Hurry up. A group of warriors were smiling and staring at Li Yu, paying attention to his assessment results. Li Yu beat their faces with data. As soon as Jiang Nian finished speaking, Li Yu walked up to the target, adjusted her breathing slightly, then took a deep breath, and then her fist popped out like a cannon towards the target. Bang! With a roar, the electronic screen above the punch target flickered with the number. 1,457 kilograms. Good guy, 1,457 kilograms, this strength is quite good among beginner warriors who have learned guidance techniques. Chief Instructor Wu Tong nodded slightly as he looked at his punching power, but the scarred woman behind him spoke coldly. It's indeed good, but Li Yu used all his body's strength to make the heaviest punch, which could easily lead to unstable center of gravity. If you fight monsters and lose your body's center of gravity, don't you need me to explain in detail? You're a bit too strict, after all, you're still a child, so it's normal to have unpredictable choices. But this is not an excuse for your mistakes. If you lose focus in the fight, you are committing suicide. Wu Tong smiled and then warned the 9 people. Yes. Li Yu and the 9 nodded, as for whether they heard it or not everyone has their own opinions. Anyway, Li Yu doesn't. The experience of 3 years of fighting in The Sims tells him that in a fight, all swords and knives need to be given their all. Oh, what do you think Jiang Nian brought me here for? Let my team go to the wilderness and bring this kid along. We'll talk about this later, the next one. Wu Tong waved his hand, gesturing for the woman to shut up, and then took out the next ID card. Next, Tian Qi. Li Yu walked back to the team. The gaze is on the woman with a scarred face. After all, depending on the situation, this is the martial arts team that Jiang Nian found for himself. 9 people quickly completed their boxing test and all reached the qualified line. After all, those who lack the ability to meet the basic level of martial arts skills will not eagerly apply for the Quasi martial arts assessment. The instructor of the martial arts school will not register him either. The second test is the speed test, and this time out of 9, there are already many stumbling blocks. The first one to be eliminated was Yang Wu, with a passing line of 25 meters per second. He successfully failed with a score of 24.5 meters per second. With a low sigh, Yang Wu returned to the team somewhat disappointed. If he were in a better state, perhaps he would have passed, but unfortunately, there is no such thing as if in reality. Li Yu's boxing test was the first, and the speed test was naturally the last. However, he had sufficient confidence in himself and just tried his best to run, achieving a score of 28.4 meters per second. It has exceeded the qualified line by a considerable amount. Not bad, it's so much higher than the qualified line. Wu Tong nodded in approval. In the end, 4 people were eliminated in terms of speed. In the end, only 5 people remained. Follow me. Wu Tong nodded slightly, then led the 5 people and the dozen or so onlookers to the nerve reaction testing room next to the martial arts training hall. The first one, Li Yu. After seeing Li Yu enter the testing area, Wu Tong pressed the start button, and the edge of the area was instantly surrounded by red light. Before the test is completed, it is not allowed to leave the testing area, otherwise it will be eliminated directly. Touching the red line will result in a deduction of points. After briefly introducing the rules, Wu Tong began testing. Then I only saw the muzzle of the neural response testing machine rotating and emitting red light, followed by some bullets made of rubber tips. The former is very fast, while the latter is defenseless. Li Yu could only dodge as much as possible, but occasionally she couldn't dodge and was hit. A minute passed quickly. As the machine stopped rotating, Li Yu's score also appeared on the screen. Within 60 seconds, hit 34 times without touching the red light, qualified. Wu Tong looked at the screen with a slight smile and said, "Congratulations, Li Yu. From now on, you will be a Quasi warrior." "Okay, thank you, Instructor Wu." Li Yu nodded and said respectfully. Only 5 people were left to conduct the neural response test, so the results were quickly obtained. Only one person was unlucky, did not pass the exam, and was eventually eliminated. Among the 9 participants, only 4 eventually became Quasi-warriors. The proportion may seem quite high, but in reality, there are tens of thousands of students in Nian district, and the probability of ordinary people becoming warriors is too low. Subsequently, Wu Tong led the 4 of them to apply for a contract for the practical assessment of martial arts. After asking them to sign it, they began to introduce their genetic abilities and guidance techniques. Well, the focus is on Hong. However, it is only natural that as the founder of the extreme martial arts school and currently the strongest on earth, Hong's noodles are still quite impressive. Subsequently, several armed soldiers were called in to escort the other 3 people out of the community. Only Li Yu remained. "Li Yu, I know you plan to go to the wilderness to hone yourself and become stronger, so that you can obtain higher startup funds when signing the warrior contract." Looking at Li Yu, Wu Tong said calmly. "But you're wrong. You should know that the key to being called a genius by Lao Jiang is not your martial arts realm, but your swordsmanship. A 20.1-year-old quasi-warrior, although good, is not at the level of a genius. So if you don't go to the wilderness area before, as long as you don't become a general-level warrior when you come back, the final outcome won't change too much. So, my personal suggestion is that after reviewing the benefits, you can sign the contract now." After Wu Tong finished speaking, he took out a list and a contract from the side. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Signing the warrior contract, seeking follow-up reading and recommendation tickets. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Signing the warrior contract, seeking follow-up reading and recommendation tickets. Li Yu took the list handed over by Wu Tong, glanced at it, and couldn't help but be surprised in her heart. In addition to a regular villa, there is also a start-up capital of 10 million yuan, as well as a secret recipe for body techniques, guidance techniques, and attack techniques with a total price not exceeding 40 million yuan. Together, not counting as a standalone villa, there are a whopping 50 million. After ordinary warriors sign the warrior contract, they only have a starting fund of 1 million yuan. No wonder Wu Tong said that as long as he didn't reach the level of a general when he returned, the final result wouldn't have changed much. "Sorry, I still want to make a decision after returning from the wilderness." Looking at the list, Li Yu remained silent for a long time and slowly pushed it back. He is very tempted. As long as you sign this warrior contract now, you can immediately receive the activation gold given by the Extreme Martial Arts School, even if it's only 10 million for him to use freely, it can simulate life 10 times. But Li Yu still feels a bit unwilling. He wants more. It seems that you have great confidence in yourself. Wu Tong looked at the pushed list and contract, touched his chin, and smiled. But in fact, it's completely unnecessary. This treatment is provided based on your current potential. If there is a qualitative change in your strength in the future, the contract treatment will also increase accordingly. Because my extreme martial arts school is not the only power in this world, when the treatment really doesn't match your talent, you can completely breach the contract and leave, and naturally someone is willing to pay for you. After all, the penalty for breach of contract in the martial arts contract is only 300 million at most. Okay, I'm willing to join the extreme martial arts school. After a moment of silence, Li Yu nodded slightly and responded. Just sign here. Wu Tong nodded slightly and pushed the contract and pen towards Li Yu again. Then, with a smile on his face, he watched as Li Yu finished signing and reached out his hand, saying, "Welcome, Li Yu. Join the family of Extreme Martial Arts School." Li Yu stood up and shook hands with him. Starting today, you can move directly into the martial arts villa community. As for your startup funds and the selected secret scripts, once you officially become a warrior and have the authority to become a warrior, you are eligible to enter the internal network of the Extreme Martial Arts School to purchase secret scripts. The startup funds will also directly enter your warrior account. Wu Tong smiled and recited his statement. Do you need to officially become a warrior before you can use this startup fund? Li Yu was taken aback, with a slightly stiff smile. Let him have an empty celebration together. It turns out that the activation funds can only be used after the actual combat assessment of the warriors is completed. Yes, the quasi-warrior assessment can be conducted on August 1st. What, do you have a need to use money now? Wu Tong was slightly taken aback. After I return, I will enter the wilderness area. If possible, I would like to use the startup funds to purchase equipment. Li Yu sighed in her heart and explained. He can't say he needs money to simulate life, can he? No one believes it even if they say it. It's easy to say. Whatever weapons you need, just let Jiang Nian transfer them directly from the arsenal. Wu Tong smiled heartily and then gave a few more instructions before letting Jiang Nian leave the Extreme Guild Hall with Li Yu. The woman with a scarred face left together. Get in the car. Jiang Nian and the scar-faced woman both had cars, so Li Yu didn't take the subway. Instead, she took the two of them directly and headed to Nian district. Tell Shui and the others first. Jiang Nian was driving, with a scarred woman sitting in the passenger seat and Li Yu in the back seat. The three of them did not engage in any conversation, so Li Yu took out her phone and called her sister Li Shui. Hello. As soon as the phone number was dialed out, the voice of my sister Li Shui came from my phone. It's me, your brother. Li Yu smiled and said, of course it has been approved, and the martial arts contract has already been signed. The quasi-martial arts certificate will arrive in a few days. Well, don't cry, go back and speak slowly. Now in the Jiangyan instructor's car, you'll probably be in Nian district in a while. Okay. Hanging up the phone, a smile appeared on Li Yu's face. If you haven't received the startup funds, then you haven't received them. If you sign the Wuxia contract early, then you can move into the Wuxia community early. So now that she doesn't have 1 million in her hands, if she does, Li Yu would love to start a simulation life immediately. He didn't believe it anymore. He had already joined the Extreme Martial Arts School, and with this layer of tiger skin, that so-called noble person could still be reckless. As long as that noble person is no longer able to crush oneself at will, the benefits gained from that simulation will definitely increase exponentially. Family members. The scarred woman saw Li Yu smile in the rearview mirror and remained silent for a moment before slowly asking. Yes, my sister. Li Yu immediately responded to the woman with a scarred face's inquiry. After all, this is the captain of the martial arts team that Jiang Nian brought for him, providing him with safety in the wilderness for the next few months is related to his own life. Sister. Don't notify your parents. The woman with a scarred face was slightly stunned. My parents passed away, only 2 younger sisters. Liu talked about her original parents with a dull expression. It's also normal. Although he has been in the world of devouring the Starry Sky for 5 years, his original parents passed away at the age of 7, and there are hardly any memories of his original parents inherited. Liu naturally didn't have any feelings. However, the scarred woman didn't know this and seemed to think she had uncovered Liu's scar. After a moment of silence, she said, I'm sorry. It's okay, sister. What's your name? Which martial arts team leader is you? Liu shrugged casually and then asked. Her name is Meng Yan, the captain of the warrior-level warrior squad Burial Fox Squad, and the warrior-level warrior. Jiang Nian, who was driving, answered Liu and slowly said, Ian didn't originally stay in Jiangnan Bay City, but for your sake, I request that they stay for an extra day. Ian also agrees that you can temporarily join the Fox Burial team, but don't think that the general-level warrior team can guarantee absolute safety. Well, okay. Liu nodded slightly, with a hint of gratitude on her face. Jiang Nian really values himself, and surprisingly, he found a warrior-level warrior team for him. This strength is already sufficient to ensure a certain level of safety in wilderness areas. Well, but as I said before, the Fox Burial team will be within your ability range, giving Liu a certain opportunity to experience and grow, allowing you to adapt to the fight and providing you with help within your ability range along the way. After Jiang Nian finished speaking, Meng Yan calmly continued. But you also need to improve. I can only give you 1 adaptation period for a task at most. If you can't switch your role well after a task, then I'm sorry, you can only go where you came from. Sister Yan, I understand. Liu immediately nodded in response. He has experience from the Sims and naturally knows that in the wilderness, the warrior squad can be said to be dancing on the edge of the blade. If there is a burden in the team at this time, it is very likely to bring the entire team into irreparable danger. So, he also knew in his heart that Jiang Nian was willing to sacrifice a great deal of favor by stuffing him into a warrior-level warrior team like the Burial Fox team. End of this chapter.